Greetings all you whiskey explorers, this is Mark from WhiskyWhistle bringing you whiskey review number 51. Thanks for tuning in. If you're a new viewer, I'm so happy you've come, and if you're a returning subscriber, that's just great. I hope you'll enjoy this one. Today we're going to be going to Speyside, a region in Scotland. Hence it's a Scotch. It's a Speyside Scotch, and this one is the Glenrothes. Okay, so here it is. I've left it in the box. It's quite an interesting box that they've created. Very attractive and yet not that expensive, so it really doesn't affect the sale price of the whiskey itself. This is the 1998 version. It's a vintage, unlike some other distilleries, most other distilleries who offer an age statement. This one is a vintage, so these are from casks that were laid down back in 1998 and bottled in 2014. Making it, well, hopefully 16 years, possibly 15 and change, but somewhere in that region, okay? So let's get this unboxed, and I'm going to bring that a little closer for you just so you can see the gorgeousness of this. And compared to other distilleries, other brands, they're using a nice round bottle, which I find also quite appealing. Okay, so there it is. This one I'll try to set right over here. Okay, so the Glenrothes 1998. Very enjoyable single malt Scotch whiskey. And a lovely wooden, very tight cork on that one. So quite a nice color. And let's get that poured, shall we? There it is, beautiful. Whoa, there it is. Okay. Now we're going to leave that just for a minute or two. Let that get a little bit of air. And while we're doing that, let's review the distillery just a little bit. Okay? So Glenrothes Distillery, founded in 1879. Well, in next to the burn called Rothes, hence it's called Glenrothes, the valley near that little stream. Okay, and this brand, excuse me, the Glenrothes single malt brand is owned by Berry Brothers and Rudd. However, interestingly enough, the distillery is owned by the Edrington Group, so that's quite a mix, isn't it? And anyway, so let's go back to the founding days. 1878, James Stewart and Co. opened the distillery, or started the distillery. The first spirits, December 1879. A lot of fire damage happened at this distillery. 1896, an explosion in 1903. Warehouse number 1, another fire, 1922. 1962, another fire. The 1922 fire, they lost almost 1 million liters of whiskey. And 1962, the fire, well, they took advantage of the fire and they expanded. So that might have been mixed blessing in disguise, we'll call it. I really hope nobody was injured. 1982, not a fire, in fact, just more expansion to 5 wash stills, 5 spirit stills, increasing the capacity to 5.6 million liters of pure alcohol per year. Okay, now as you're watching, you'll see a couple of people roll through, and we have the distillery manager. The malt master is his title, and his name is Gordon Motion, and I believe he'll be next here. So let's see. That's the spirit safe you're looking at there. What's a spirit safe, you ask? That's a complicated question. There's some casks maturing. You can see the age statements of the vintages on the casks. And that is probably their most elegant bottle. Likely I'll never get to try that one, unless there's a benefactor out there who'd like to send it to me. So there's Mr. Gordon Motion testing his wares. And the next one shows two people on the left of the screen is Gordon Motion. The right is Kirsten Campbell, who is the one who looks after Cutty Sark. Okay, and how are those related? Well, if you've been watching, I tasted Cutty Sark long before this one, and I really, really liked it, especially the Prohibition, Cutty Sark Prohibition. If you haven't tried it, please get it. And then a few weeks ago, I picked up this one, the Glenrothes 1998. And immediately when I opened it, and when I smelled it, I thought, now wait a minute here. And I didn't even know the relationship between these two brands so much. And I smelled it and I thought, this smells like the Cutty Sark. And sure enough, I poured a glass side by side and I could really smell some similarities there. So that's why I've included that photo there. Also because, in fact, Berry Brothers and Rudd, who own this brand, used to own Cutty Sark. And they sold Cutty Sark in 2010 to Eddington Group in exchange for the brand, the Glenrothes single malt brand. So that's interesting. Okay, so let's get into the nosing and the tasting, and we'll have a short advertisement. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. Okay, so let's get nosing that one. Salted caramel, a bit of wood smoke, there's kind of an orange peel, candied orange peel effect going on there. And my earlier notes from today, what do I see here? I wrote candied citrus, vanilla hand soap. That's interesting, isn't it? Cinnamon fruit compote. There's lots of cinnamon and lots of spice going on there. And for spices, I've written nutmeg as well as cardamom. And I'll say this here, and I wrote it on there as well. I love the smell of this whiskey. Okay, the taste. Cheers, everyone. Great work, Mr. Gordon Motion. So it starts off with a big sweetness, a little bit of salt. Then it gets a little bit sour and a little bit bitter. It's very juicy, and what I wrote here, I can feel my mouth watering as I drink this. So that's interesting. Let's try that again. There's still a lot of spices going on there. I wrote baking spices as well as dried apricots, some leather, and I wrote here oak sawdust. So maybe the smell that you would smell if you walked into a woodworking room where oak was being used. Now, my dog is right here. I'm just going to tell him one thing. Rocky, you stop that. Okay, quiet now. Good boy. Okay. Now, we didn't talk about the whiskey itself. It's 43% ABV, and upon investigation, they use mostly Spanish ex-sherry bourbon. Mostly Spanish ex-sherry casks with some ex-bourbon casks as well. And I think the Spanish oak would lend a lot of those spicy notes to it, to this whiskey. So, how about the finish? It's dry, it's sweet, and it's bitter. There's vanilla, there's some floral, and what else have I written here? A bit of wood smoke. There's a little bit of wood smoke throughout this whiskey. Not so much peat. I wrote here very faint peat, if at all, and the finish is quite long. Okay, let's try that with a little bit of water. Color-wise, maybe just a shade below amber. And well, it doesn't tell us whether that's a natural color. And at 43% ABV, it is likely chill filtered, hopefully to a lesser degree. Certainly can't say I notice any sort of blemishes on this particular whiskey. I really do love it. Okay, that should be worked in well enough. And we'll throw another advertisement right here. Okay, welcome back. Ad revenues, as I've told you, if I do end up getting any, that will be used to fund future whiskey reviews. It's sweeter. It's a little bit more wood smoke in there, in fact. What else have I see here? You know, I just don't have as much time on camera as when I'm compiling my notes. But if you wait long enough, I wrote here, it becomes creamier, sweeter in a sense. And I've written here caramel buttercreams. So the chocolates that have that very light caramel buttercream. The wood smoke is still evident. Not as much peat as I noticed on the nose originally. The spices are still all present. And there's a ripe banana note developing as well. Okay, how about the taste with water? Bigger sweetness, almost no bitterness at all. I've written here pin cherries, so a sweet sourness and a fruitiness. The spices are still all there, and I've written here it gets a little bit oilier. The mouthfeel gets a little bit oilier, and if you wait long enough, it does get a much smoother, very easy in your mouth. What about the finish with water? Just lovely. It's still dry and sweet. And I've written here, there's something a little bit vegetal, kind of like a sweet grass, or here in Korea, something called buchu, which is kind of like in the chive or green onion family, but it is not spicy. It's very sweet, and it is wonderful with chicken, in fact, along with some red Korean gochu pepper sauce. Try that. You can probably find that at a good Korean restaurant. Okay. So I'm in love with this whiskey. I absolutely adore it. I've given it 92 out of 100. That's the WhiskyWhistle Whisky Score for Glenrothes 1998. And I mentioned about Cutty Sark already, the relationship between these two. I invite you to try Cutty Sark Prohibition and get a bottle of this and taste them side by side and tell me if I am not correct about that relationship. There's something very similar there. And I've written here, I was taken by this whiskey from the very first. Especially love the salted caramel sweetness and the fantastic finish. Okay, so 92 out of 100, that is the WhiskyWhistle score for Glenrothes. The Glenrothes 1998, bottled in 2014. Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey at 43%. Fantastic, okay? Well, that's it. If you've watched till now, please subscribe. You can click right down there below in the corner, and I hope to see you again. Take care, everyone.